is the Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition. Good evening, all. I'm Shashina Roll, and welcome to this extended newscast on what many are calling a national tragedy. It is an aviation incident that has rocked the world and has left a country in mourning. Topping the news tonight, the Department of Civil Aviation has commenced a full investigation into yesterday's fatal plane crash near the Grand Bahamas shipyard. 9 persons were killed in that incident, including senior pastor of Bahamas Faith Ministries International, Reverend Dr. Myles Munroe, his wife Ruth, and Pastor Richard Pinder, youth pastor Lavard Manifest Parks, his wife Riddell, and a young son, as well as a foreign male pastor and the 2 pilots, Franchon Cooper and Stanley Thurston. Now, a 3-member technical team arrived on Grand Bahama early this morning to try and unravel what caused the private Learjet utilized by Dr. Myles Munroe to crash. Minister for Transport, the Honorable Glenys Hannah Martin, telling reporters today that the Cessna manufacturer Bombardier will be on the ground tomorrow, along with the National Transportation Safety Board, Royal Bahamas Police Force officials, and civil aviation to assist with this investigation.
Right now, it's just a matter of gathering, they're taking photographs, they're documenting, and then tomorrow when the NTSB and the manufacturer who understands the aircraft comes on scene, then you'll be able to garner more information. A key or critical piece of information will be the cockpit voice recorder and whether there's a data voice recorder online. They're not sure of that yet, but that will greatly assist in understanding what happened here.
Minister Hannah Martin extended gratitude to the members of the police force and the ground crew at the shipyard for working tirelessly throughout the night to retrieve the bodies and assist with the overall investigation. Heavy rain, lightning, and thunderstorms dominated the weather yesterday evening. We spoke with Director of Civil Aviation Ivan Clare about the weather conditions.
The weather was good enough for them to fly yesterday. Of course, sometimes the weather deteriorates and the pilots would have to make a decision, but they were giving they've been given weather updates as they would have come in, and it would have been up to the pilot to accept an approach or decline the approach. The accident investigation is ongoing, and as soon as we have further concrete information, it would be released.
Now, the tragedy unfolded shortly after 5 o'clock on Sunday afternoon in what is being described as adverse weather conditions. The private jet owned by Dr. Myles Munroe crashed just minutes away from the Grand Bahama International Airport. The debris scattered in an area to the rear of the Grand Bahama shipyard. Those assisting with the recovery process say it was a gruesome scene. Megan Shepard reports.
Police cars and EMS officials swarming the Grand Bahama shipyard Sunday evening as news quickly spread about a plane that crashed near the dump site on the grounds. It was shortly before 5 p.m. when the jet grazed a crane at the Grand Bahama shipyard and exploded on impact. Officer in charge of Grand Bahama, Emmerich Seymour, meeting with members of the press in the conference room at the Grand Bahama shipyard shortly after the tragic incident.
A twin-engine plane, apparently en route from Nassau to Freeport, apparently crash-landed in the Grand Bahama shipyard facility. The plane would have reportedly hit a pole, hit a crane, and then crash-landed into the recycle dump site.
A crowd began to gather outside the facilities as word spread that world-renowned motivational speaker and pastor of Bahamas Faith Ministries International, Myles Munroe, may have been on board, while work crews could be seen digging and lifting debris as the recovery effort went on for more than 7 hours. Grand Bahama experiencing adverse weather on Sunday with heavy rainfall, thunder, and lightning storms. But ACP Seymour says it is still too early to determine if weather played a role in the fatal crash.
I have no idea, ma'am. Like I said, this is initial stage investigation. All of them will have to be, anytime there's a crash, the police along with civil aviation will definitely be on the ground tomorrow to assist with that investigation. So, so I can't say at this stage what caused or what contributed to the crash.
9 passengers were on board the Lair 36 executive jet, which departed the Lynden Pinland International Airport at 4:07 p.m. Users of social media and popular communications platform WhatsApp were buzzing with images of the crash site and reports of possible victims. The local police chief is sending a stern warning to persons to cease and desist and to also be mindful of the impact this could have on family members.
Anytime we have situations like this, there are protocols that pertain as far as the police is concerned. There's an investigation that has to be done. There's the identification of the body that has to be made, and of course there is the notification of the next of kin. I want to say to those persons who in fact they're doing this to cease, because listen, we have to have respect for these people's families. And of course, to get things out on the social media, talking about who it was and what, and without the being authorized by the police, I think it's really absurd. And of course, it's irresponsible on the part of those individuals.
Hours later, larger cranes were then brought in and pieces of the mangled plane could be seen hovering in the air. Seymour says these pieces will not be moved until Monday morning.
I'm leading the investigation on this from the police perspective, and of course, as this investigation develops, I'll be briefing you accordingly.
Several hearses were at the scene waiting for hours, and then around 11:30 p.m., the bodies were all loaded into the awaiting vehicles and transported to the morgue at the Ram Memorial Hospital with police escort. The bodies were recovered by work crews who spent hours in the pouring rain. ACP Seymour is thanking those at the Grand Bahamas shipyard for their efforts in this major tragedy.
They're doing a massive job for us.
Megan Shepard, ZNS Network News.
Thanks, Megan. Well, Dr. Myles Munroe and members of the BFM party were on their way to Grand Bahama for the Global Leadership Summit when something went terribly wrong. The convention center at the Grand Lucine Resort was prepared to receive hundreds for the 3-day conference, but before the evening session would begin, delegates received the tragic news. Joan Davis-Roll has that story.
The tragic passing of Dr. Myles Munroe sending shockwaves not only here in the Bahamas, but indeed throughout the world. Piercing and gut-wrenching screams echoed the convention center at the Grand Lucine Resort. It was a tragic and shocking moment for the Bahamas Faith Ministry family on Grand Bahama, as well as hundreds of delegates on island for the Global Leadership Conference. This is official word came that their leader, Dr. Myles Munroe, and his wife Ruth, along with 7 others, had perished when their aircraft crashed on approach to Grand Bahama International Airport. Some wept openly as others tried to provide comfort. Minister for Grand Bahama, the Honorable Dr. Michael Davo.
He was a dynamite leader of our community. I've had the opportunity to meet him many occasions. I have also been a follower of his church, very instrumental figure here on the island of Grand Bahama with the establishment of the BFM family here on Grand Bahama. I was looking very forward to some of his teaching at this particular conference.
The news of the 9 deaths, too much for one woman to handle, as she suffered a medical emergency. The Minister of Grand Bahama, Dr. Michael Davo, was called on for his medical expertise. An ambulance was summoned and the woman transported to the Ram Memorial Hospital for further treatment. All this unfolded as church leaders were locked away in prayer and deliberations, attempting to determine not only their next course of action, but what could have resulted in Munroe's Learjet going tragically off course. The Minister of Tourism, the Honorable Obi Roshcom, says the Bahamas and indeed the world has lost a Bahamian of the first order who not only left an indelible mark, but who also had a global reach.
He had taken the position last year that he was coming to Grand Bahama to help us revitalize tourism. He said that he wanted to help us grow tourism again because he saw the difficulties we were facing. He saw the need for conferences, and he knew that we were focusing heavily on religious tourism. And he came, he brought the conference, and he began the effort to cause for growth, and there has been growth as a result. He became renowned throughout the world, a true ambassador. He spoke of leadership, he spoke of vision, he spoke of integrity, he spoke of his country, and he spoke of the country that he always thought it could be. He was a student of Lynden Pinland. He's one of those individuals who Pinland saw years ago would be among the leaders of our country. He's lived up to the billing.
Minister Wolshcom disclosed that he visited the crash site moments after the aviation tragedy occurred.
As a journalist, I've seen many but I saw the mangled plane, and of course you would see remains as well of the human beings. And again, it's just a reality. It's those kind of situations that bring you face to face with the world in which we live, with the life in which we have, that all that we are could be gone just like that.
A visiting couple from Sweden on Grand Bahama to meet Dr. Myles Munroe and to attend the conference. They recalled how they got the tragic news just minutes after their arrival.
When we arrived here, the taxi driver told us about it was 9 dead. People thought it was Myles Munroe. We checked in and saw a conference table and got the shocking news.
Very sad, yes.
It was shortly after 10 o'clock Sunday night that BFM officials convened a special called meeting. In attendance was former United States politician Andrew Young. He was on island as special guest of Dr. Myles Munroe. A powerful praise, worship, and prayer session followed as delegates looked to a higher power to prepare them spiritually to face the days ahead. Joan Davis Rowe,